Hi guys, welcome to our podcast Supposedly Adults, where we are four supposed adults sharing our quote-unquote youthful experiences,
talking about the most random life topics,
giving our thoughts that no one cares about,
and just trying to make life suck less.
That's right, so I'm Jensen.
I'm Melody.
This is Calvin.
And this is Lyris.
And today's random question is, am I a gossip bitch? Hey guys.
Hello. Hello everybody.
Hello.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Good, tired.
Pretty okay.
But honestly, doesn't matter. I don't care. I just want to talk about my problems.
Wow,
so, no,
so rude, but alright.
I'm just kidding. No, because it's just been stuck in my mind since forever. So I really want to share that with you guys and let you know, and you guys can let me know what you think.
Nice.
So this is what happened. So I always consider myself as a person that don't ever gossip. That's what I thought about myself. But then this incident happened at work, and I'm just very confused now. I'm not sure whether it's a gossip or not. So maybe you can tell me. So what happened was today I was just working with my colleagues. His name is Harry. I was just working with him.
His name.
Calling him out. Okay.
No. He's good. Okay. Regardless, doesn't matter what his name is. I was just working with him, and out of nowhere, because we're working on a project together. And out of nowhere, he was like, "Oh, Calvin." I was like, "Oh, what's up?" Hey, I'm thinking more about it. I felt like the comments that the manager made is very interesting. I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said that, "Oh, you know how the manager was saying that how, we should really come together and work on this project together. You know, I feel like we should definitely dedicate it some time, and so maybe every Tuesday all of us should come to this room together physically so that we can hash it out and and work on a project together." And then Harry was like, "Yeah, so the manager said that," and I was very confused. I was like, who is she directing that to? So I thought that was interesting. And then so Harry was asking me what I thought about it. So I didn't really think much. I didn't really even pay attention to that line because I don't really care, right? But then when Harry was asking me, I just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Maybe she was referring to person A. I don't want to say his or her name now. It's just like maybe referring to person A. And then that was the only thing, because I didn't think much. I just thought like, oh, maybe that was the person she was referring to, and that was it. That was the end of the conversation. Okay, anyways. And then later, when we were talking, before we go, we was just kind of like, yo, what are you doing over a weekend? And I was like, yeah, this weekend I'm recording a podcast. It will be on gossip. But I was like, yeah, it's going to be hard for me because I don't really gossip, so I don't know what I can contribute. And then Harry out of nowhere would be like, wait, Calvin, what do you mean you don't gossip? We just gossip. I was like, wait. What? Really? That's gossip? So that's the content. So it's perfect because we're going to talk about gossip, and yet I just have a incident where I'm not sure whether I was gossiping or not. So this is perfect. So I guess, what do you guys think? Yeah, it's weird.
No, so wait. I think we need to back up a little. So how do we even define gossip? Because gossip is such a general, vague term. So how do we even define it? I mean, I guess I should ask Calvin, what's gossip to you, since you feel like you've never gossiped?
Yeah.
Well, gossip to me, because I'm a Buddhist, so I look up the Buddhist definition. So gossip basically means driving a wedge between two parties, or set one party against another party. So I guess within that definition, I felt like, I wasn't really setting up against one party against another. I wasn't making Harry hate person A, right? I wasn't doing it. It was just a general comment saying, oh, maybe she was referring to person A because Harry asked me this question. He was saying, oh, I wonder what he was talking about or whatever, or she was talking about or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's person A. So that was the only intent. I don't really thought of anything. I would just try to state not facts, or my thoughts, but I was trying to I wasn't trying to drive a wedge between anybody. So that's why I didn't think that was gossip. And yeah.
But in that case, do you agree now? Like, do you feel like, oh, shit, maybe I did gossip now.
Right.
Or do you still feel like, because that is still not your
I
definition.
don't know. This is why I need to come here and ask you about it. You can't ask me. I mean, I'm very confused. I don't know.
Melody, Lewis, what is your verdict?
Well, I don't know. I guess it really depends on the definition and like why is gossip necessarily bad to you, right? Because in our society now, there's so much like tea channel, spill the tea, expose her, or whatever, right? So I would say like in the society nowadays, gossip is actually like not as frowned upon as before, right? They're like, they sort of embrace it because they're like, like gossiping is not necessarily bad. So I guess, I don't know, Jansen, I know you're like
is it not frowned upon?
Okay.
I feel like it is still frowned upon. It's just that people still do it. It doesn't mean it's not.
I think it's a taboo, but okay, I just Googled the Oxford definition. So it says like informal talk or stories about other people's private lives that may be unkind or not true. And like it's that maybe part that like kind of makes it very vague, because we don't really know whether like the way I say it, I could think of it as very neutral, but like the way you take it, it could be very negative. And like there's so many sort of ways, like in tabloid celebrity gossip, some of them, I guess, I think the better ones frame it, and like which I like to listen to, they frame events that happen, so they try to make it very neutral, and then like it's up to you on how you want to judge it as right or wrong, right? So like for me, to make it simpler for people to like identify that they are talking about, like once they talk about a third party, or once they talk about someone that's not there, even in a neutral way, because you don't really know what the other person is thinking, the person you're talking to, like it really could, like it, for me, it's just gossip. So in like Calvin's case, it is kind of gossip.
Just
right?
talking about another person, right?
Like generally talking about another
exactly.
person is gossip. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I see it. So like I'll give you guys an example. So I just I just got back to uni, or not really just, but anyway, so during this like magnificent COVID times, like for me, I generally like want to hang out with a bit more how do I put it, like COVID conscious people, or people who like will want to self-isolate a bit more. And like the culture is really different when you're back in another country, so you don't really know. So amongst like my peers who like I would say have a very similar living habit of or trying to like isolate themselves every few days, we tend to talk about who is like quote unquote safe, or who like went out to a pub the other night, that kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know, like I would say that's gossip because number one, the conversation goes up and down. Sometimes it is a bit like, oh my god, we should avoid him. But like from how I approach it, or how I would like to assume I'm approaching it, is really just I'm just trying to figure out like what is the safest way to live my life
like
without getting
information,
like my whole household correct.
Right. Okay.
Like it's a very
right.
I guess Melody can contribute to like it's a very sociology type of way of thinking. Like we're trying to gossip in a way to like get little bits of information that will help us, and like in doing so, like for me, I try not to actively make like negative judgments about people, but just be aware that like, this happened to them, or they did this.
Right.
Like I try to keep it very factual in my head. If not, like it will kind of affect the way you treat them, then that's just a whole mess.
No, okay, I see. So I'm gonna throw out like a philosophical question now then. Can any statements ever be neutral?
Right.
Because I feel like I'm just thinking, right? Because for any journalism or newspaper article, journalists are supposed to be neutral, but still there are obvious stance, and they're trying to influence their readers in one way or another. Right, so can any innocent statement ever be truly neutral?
Yeah, and even if it's not neutral, is there a problem? So can I never like comment or have my own like analysis on another person's actions?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is that gossiping? Then like I'm like, I don't know, like a public figure, let's say they did this, or like the politician did that. I don't know, maybe that's not good. Okay, I'm thinking. So like, because it's like politicians, like maybe they did something, or you're like, or whatever, or like, okay, let's say like during COVID, right? So a person went out to like a party, and I'm like, I don't think he should go to a party. Then is that gossip? But I'm just saying that I don't think that he should go. I guess it depends on like, why are you saying this? Are you saying?
But you just don't think. But you didn't. Did you tell people? And then you're
Right.
like, oh, so and so went to the
Right, I
party,
guess-
or you're
yeah.
like, oh, I don't think you should. Or,
Right,
you know
right,
what I
right. I
mean?
guess it's like-
how did you put it? Like, what
That's
did you
true.
say to that
right.
person?
Or like, what
Yeah.
is the intention, right? Are you saying like,
Yeah.
the other person went to a party and we shouldn't do that? Or like, he went to a party, he's so like irresponsible? Or am I saying like, hey, you shouldn't go to a party because it's like during the COVID, or right? So I guess it's like the intention of why you're mentioning another person, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with that intention bit, because if we go back to which, I completely agree with the Buddhism side of it, because obviously if I say, oh, Lyris is such a thoughtful person, she's such a great friend, technically it could still be gossip because I'm talking about someone else without her presence, right? But I don't think that would be a problem in any way. So I really like the definition that Buddhism has in terms of setting one party against another. And that is the problem, right? Because again, going back to the intention, then you should always scrutinize yourself in terms of the intention that you're trying to do. So let's say if Calvin's, going back to Calvin's case, right? So if he literally was just answering a question as is, like, oh, my best guess would be this person, then I guess that is fine in that sense. But if my intention is, let's say, oh, I bet it's that person, with the intention of getting Harry to agree with you and think that she's a bad person, then I think that would be, sowing discord or driving a wedge between two
That's
people.
good. Thanks for that. So that makes me feel a little bit better. So maybe I am not a gossip bitch. But that's, no, I'm not talking me.
That was not the
me,
conclusion, but
me.
all right.
But as I was thinking more about it, right? You talk about like, if I am intentionally doing it, which I wasn't, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, so you just said it. But then I'm just thinking about it. What if I unintentionally,
Correct,
let's
that's
say,
right.
drive a wedge between Harry and that person? Like,
yeah.
what if I didn't know? Like, would that gossip then? Am I driving a wedge between them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if I? Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying, like, you mentioned no statements is neutral, because it depends on how that person take it in. Like, what would happen then?
It's
Like,
true.
oh,
It's like making that comment could never be neutral, and how other people take it could also never be neutral. Even if you're like trying to even you're like, oh, it's really cool that Calvin like helped those puppies, and then the other person is like, oh, what is he trying to do? He's trying to show off, pretend that how good, like, right? Then am I driving a wedge? But I am just complimenting Calvin, right?
Mm-hmm. So like as we can see on like all levels of life, it's very difficult to remain neutral, even though that's the goal, I suppose. But like, when you're writing a whole chunk of paragraph or trying to explain like the point, that kind of thing, it's very difficult to like say, oh, I'm a very objective, like we try to, but it's very, very difficult, as like I guess you guys would be aware of, like from writing essays and whatnot. But that's why for me, I would rather just group it all under a gossip, and it's more of how you approach or like kind of tailor what you say to try to make it neutral, I guess. So like when you say, oh, person A did this, and then like if you are aware that like the person you're talking to could take it as a diss to person A, like you could say like, oh, I'm not meaning this, I'm just saying person A did this, like just state it or re-emphasize that fact that it's like I'm just stating what happened, that's it. I don't want to like cause any problems or like hurt your relationship, whatever. But that person did do this, that kind of
But
thing.
don't you think this is kind of like the no offense kind of statement?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no offense, but you look hideous in that dress. Like, does caveating it is caveating it enough? I think that would be my question.
Well, like I feel like it's better than like establishing, like even when people caveat it, it's like when people say no offense, there is like some
I hate
offense
that.
to be like saying it.
Right.
But you like
I never took. Yeah, I didn't think you were dissing me until you like bring out no offense.
no offense.
They're like, oh yeah. They're like, oh I think it's really interesting what you said. No offense. And I'm like, well, I didn't think that you were. I wasn't going to take offense until you said no offense. Like what?
I guess my question would be, if we take Jansen's way, would that make it even worse. Like, oh, not trying to drive a wedge between the two of you, but I just wanted to let you know that this person did that. Then with saying that, make it even more a drive a wedge situation than not.
Yeah, so doesn't that mean like almost like even if it's like neutral to you, it could really be interpreted as like negative, or like you can really like for gossip, people like to use their own experiences to interpret what has happened. Like that's how we look at celebrity gossip, that's how we look at personal gossip. So even if it's neutral to you, like you can't really know how the other person will be taking it.
Well, actually, I think like the conversation that we are having right now sort of just immediately assumes that, you know, gossiping is bad, and we're just like, oh, let's just try not to break this rule of gossiping because gossiping equals bad. But I think instead of saying that this action is bad, we just have to think about the possible impact, like make it like as holistic as possible, make it as tailoring as possible. Because now we're sort of like, oh, is there a loophole? Like there's like the law of no gossiping, and let's find a loophole, and now I am not gossiping, so I'm okay, right? That's how the no offense thing came about, right? Because you're like, oh, technically I'm not gossiping, but I am. So instead of focusing on what is gossiping and what, like, how we should, we just think about like, what are we saying? Why are we saying it? And is there any possible ways of like hurting people? Like, because the reason for not gossiping is because that gossiping, we like it came from other people, so we are putting judgment without consulting without knowing the whole truth, or like putting our judgment toward like just not being accepting, I guess, or like putting a lot of judgment. I guess we should approach it that way instead of just like finding a loophole.
Right, I think that's much more important.
Yeah.
But I have a question though, as I was listening to it, because you're just like, oh, you always caveat it's like, oh, no offense, but this, or like, oh, I'm not trying to drive a wedge between you guys, but this person did this. So, if you know this might be offensive, if you know it might drive a wedge between two people, why say it then? Then you know there's a possibility of doing that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? I guess it's just, I always hear like people, you know, like it's a very cliche thing. It's just like before you say anything, just ask yourself two questions. Like, are you gonna hurt someone? And is it necessary, right? Because sometimes when you say something, it could hurt people, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't say it, right? So for example, if, I don't know, Melody's taking drugs, right? If I'm like, yo, you should stop taking drugs, it might hurt her feelings, but it's necessary for me to say it, right? Because it's for her own good, right?
That's not gossip,
okay.
That's third
right,
person.
That's why I guess I get, okay, right. So if I'm like, when I'm talking to Jansen, right? I'm like, oh, Melody's taking drugs. That's gossiping, right? Then, but why am I saying that, right? Because that could possibly like affect Jansen's judgment towards Melody, right? But am I just saying that to be like, oh, do you know that Melody's taking drugs? Or am I trying to like, hey, Melody's taking drugs and I'm kind of concerned. Should we do something about it? What could we do about it, right? Then that's still gossiping, right? But then it's the intention, or like, why are you doing that? Right, I guess.
And I guess a lot of people who like do spread gossips, like I don't really, how do I say? Yeah, when people just say factual statements like that with the intent to help people, I guess there's just a spectrum of people and how they choose to do it, and therefore we like to label it as malicious. And more often than not, we take note of those that kind of hurt the gossipy's lives as like, and that's why we label gossip as being bad, and that's why it's such a taboo. Which I don't know. I always feel like that kind of limits the discussion of how like gossip should be done. So like the way Lewis described it, of like seeing whether it's necessary or whether it like kind of benefits the people involved and like how you go about it, it really affects how the conversation of gossip, or like how the gossip will be taken.
I agree, but you asked the question, right? If it is necessary. So first of all, let's say if someone is abusing drugs, it is necessary to ask and then say, okay. But this is the thing. I feel like, maybe just me because I'm very shallow, I feel like a lot of the times that all my conversations, all the things that I tell people, it's not necessary.
Right.
Who cares what you know what I mean? It's not important. That you know, so if we put one extreme, yeah, of course. But then like what if the things that is not necessary then are also not necessary to talk about the other people? Like then why do it, I guess?
Yeah, I guess that, oh, you mean like talking about other people. So I guess that's why it's like two questions, right? It's like, is it necessary? A lot of like what we say is not necessary, which I think should not exist. Like honestly, like how are you? The weather's really great. Very unnecessary. I don't need to know.
Unnecessary
I
human
genuinely
being.
asked them, what do you mean?
What did you have for lunch? Oh, did you go out for lunch? Very unnecessary. To be honest, in my book, that should be canceled. That should be a taboo. Like no one should ask that. Like honestly, in my opinion.
But I like
Small talk should be
talking about
canceled.
unnecessary things. That's like I like talking about internet memes. That's so unnecessary, but this is what the internet should be made for. That kind of thing.
It's true. But yeah, that's like the second question, right? It does it hurt people, right? Like it hurts me when people ask me how the weather is, but like technically the impact's not really big, right? So I feel like it's just that's why it's there's two, right? Is there a negative impact to it, and is it necessary? I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that necessity. I think that is a very interesting point because I was guilty of gossiping and also actually driving a wedge. Like, I felt really bad. So okay, this is what happened. So am I gonna affect my job? Is this gonna affect my job? But anyway, so let's put it that way. In my workplace,
Taylor, your example.
Okay, so I was actually super guilty about this thing that happened the other day because I gossiped and I think I did it maliciously, like with a bad intention too. So what happened was I work at hopefully I'm not gonna share this with anybody I work with because that might make me lose my job. But anyway, I work in a school setting. So there was a camp, and then there was this student there who was being very princessy, annoying with a lot of complaints and whatnot, right? So at this camp, there were a few people who left, and then there were just a few of us who stayed on. So one day we were just on WhatsApp, and we were talking about, so how's Princess insert name, right? Princess A, right? And I was like, oh no, you know what happened? I bumped into this teacher the other day, and apparently the student keeps making like stupid requests and still keep making ridiculous requests and just being the spoiled brat that we know she is. And I felt like I'm just saying that to, one, entertain people, and two, to just keep the conversation going. So I felt like the whole intention was unnecessary, one, based on what my sister said. And then the other thing was, I don't know. I just felt like this is such a human nature thing. For some reason, people bond over gossip.
Oh, like bond over hating the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's.
I think that is just what public, like, celebrity gossip. Like, I personally always find it very disturbing. Just because they're a celebrity or just because they're a public figure, their stuff shouldn't be under more scrutiny than us. Like, who are you to judge what they do in their private lives, right? But the thing is, people do love these kind of things, and people love, seeing other people fail, seeing, oh my god, can you believe, I don't know, Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan, they divorced. Like, that's
so
ridiculous. But people kind of like doing that. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Wow, Jensen.
I don't know. I'm a Channing fan. It's heartbreaking. But anyway. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So I don't know. I feel like this is such a human nature thing, and it's so hard to disengage, but we don't actually gain anything from talking about these stuff.
I agree, but also, like, with the necessary part, because sometimes that like I struggle with the most is, like, obviously I am also guilty of like gossiping, for entertainment or whatever, but also sometimes, like, most of the time that I gossip, quote unquote, is when I am ranting, right? When I am feeling like upset about something, or like someone oh, my mom and I had this argument or whatever, like, oh, you were like something like that, or like, oh, my friend did this and now she's making me upset, and I tell people not to be like, I guess there has to be like some, like, obviously when you tell someone, you like hope that they like are on your side, right? So there is certain, but sometimes you're just like, you really need to like express how you feel, and then is that like, well, that came with the necessity thing, right? Because if I don't express how I feel, then I could, like, my mental health could have, like, it could be bad for me, right? Or for someone, right? If someone's telling you about something, or they're like sharing with you, like, oh, today I'm really upset because my boss did this to me, and I'm feeling really upset. And if you be like, oh, we're gossiping, we should not say it, we should not engage that, then you're hurting another person, right? Then this is something that I really struggle with, because at the same time, I've also experienced stuff where I felt like upset about something, and I try to keep it to myself, and that sort of like made my mental health really like gone to like a bad place. So I learned to share to other people, but then I also find myself like, oh, am I gossiping then? You know? So I don't know.
Yeah, actually reevaluating like the necessary part. I tend to have a lot of unnecessary conversations, as I mentioned just now. Like especially during online lectures, like it's really boring to just sit there for a live lecture and not interact with people as like students or like me, you guys might know. So like part of like having a lecture is like, oh my god, the lecturer did this, or oh my god, a student asked this, and it's kind of like a weird question. But like I kind of like, I know I should be, or I should try to aspire to be above these conversations, or like to have a lot more compassion, I guess. But at the same time, life is really, really boring and sad. And like sometimes when you see people mess up, you just want to like give it a small little comment. And I'm not like forgiving my actions or anything. But at the same time, like when you engage in this, and I'm sure most of you would or will not do, or sorry, would actually do to a maybe a smaller or larger extent somewhere there. But I think it's important to know that like giving these small comments should not negate or like should not kind of affect how you actually approach this person in real life or how you treat this person. So all these celebrity gossips, yeah, like they did this, and like I really like it right now, at least like on my YouTube comments, whenever all those celebrity gossips spill stash tea, like at least my top comments always give me hope and humanity for people to know that like, oh, when like BuzzFeed gives an article that's way too blown out of proportion about Timothy Chalamet, like eating, like kissing and kissing the girl. It's very nice to know that like people actually like,
oh, you like Shawn Mendes and Camilo.
I don't know about their gossip, yeah, but like people understand that like they are still human at the end of the day, that kind of thing, and like this is just a one-off action that occurred to them, you know. I guess
right. It's like being compassionate, right?
Yeah.
But I guess, okay, sorry, but I want to kind of go back to like my question, because I kind of really want to know how you guys feel, right? Sometimes like for entertainment, right? If it's just for entertainment, like we try our best not to do that. But then, you know, sometimes it's just like really, I feel like I had an argument with my mom and I want to share it with my sister. Then is that gossiping?
You had an argument with your mom?
Let's say if I have an argument with my mom and I'm like,
and she wants to rant.
I want to rant and be like, oh, this is happening. I'm really upset. She did this to me. Then what do I do? I guess
this is, I don't know. I look at two things. Let's say if you're the one ranting, right? So now it's up to me. I think the first thing is this necessary? Yeah, you have to, because you have to do that. You have to, let go of emotions. You have to express it sometimes. You can't just hold it in all the time. I get it. And then second thing is, does it hurt anybody, or does it actually drive a wedge, right? So let's say if you're ranting to Melody, right? Then it's up to Melody to be showing compassion towards you, and yet not having any hatred toward the person that you're talking about, right? It's not you. It's up to Melody to control herself in that case, right? So she's like, oh yeah, now I'm like, well, taking on the information, and yet I shouldn't judge the person you're talking about differently. Now the second thing is, let's say if I'm the one who actually telling the story, let's say I'm the one who ranting instead of listening to someone else, right? If I'm the one ranting, then now in this case, I need to be sure the person I'm talking to that I can trust. This is where the wisdom comes in, like where life experience comes in. Because if I say certain things, this person will hate it or drive a wedge between whoever, then maybe I shouldn't say it. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain elements of trust and certain elements of actually analyzing whether I should say it or not. Right. So I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, that actually got me to think, right? So there are different roles that we could be taking in everyday life. We could be the gossiper. We could be the one saying stuff. So we already established that. I think we have two sides of things that we need to consider. One is intention and one is consequence. Like, do we have the best intention? And two is, what are the potential consequence? So that is one. The other thing is, from what you said and from what you guys said just then too, in terms of ranting, right? I think there is also the role of being the listener. Like, if I'm the one who's listening, then I do have a role to try to ease out that
So important.
conflict,
right?
conflict.
So if let's say my mother and my sister is coming to me to rant about my mother, you know, one is to, like what Calvin said, control myself and not, you know, try to let myself be carried away from that comment. But the most important thing for me to do is try to help with this dispute, like
be constructive.
Exactly. So try, instead of going like, oh my god, yes, you're right, mom is being so annoying, instead of that, then I should be saying stuff like, oh, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I feel like we could see mom's behavior in this way. So that would be my proactive role in this gossiping situation.
Right. I was also thinking that maybe it's like the way that we also like express ourselves. Like I try to be as like neutral, meaning that it's like be as factual as possible. So for example, maybe I was just thinking about the other time that I was talking to my friend about like another conflict that I had with my friend. I tried to be like as compassionate as I can be, but be honest with my emotion. Like instead of saying that she did this, therefore she is bad, it's like she did this, I feel this way. She made me feel this way. She might not have that intention. It doesn't mean that she's a bad person. It just, her action makes me feel this way, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, that the other time, maybe I don't know, my friend did something to me that made me upset. Instead of like when I told my sister, instead of being like, oh, they're really being really bad or whatever, it's like, oh, for example, like they not when they like, I don't know, when they didn't defend me, it made me feel alone.
Right.
I feel upset that they didn't defend me. I wish that they could have stood up for me. And that's how I told my friend as well. Like I confronted them and be like, I know that your intention was not to, you know, make me upset, but like the fact is that your action made me feel like I was made me feel alone. It really hurt my feelings. And this is just me being honest with you guys, and maybe we can move past that, or like next time, how can we? I guess it's like being more constructive with our like ranting with that.
Yeah, sorry, just a very quick comment though. I think Lyris brought up a new aspect of this too, because what she's saying is, I also confronted that person in person. So instead of just trying to drive a wedge or trying to rant behind that person, she actually did tell that person up front about it too. So I think, do you guys agree that maybe this is one of the way out? So if you decide to say something about somebody behind someone's back, make sure that is a comment that you're comfortable saying in front of that person too, because otherwise, you know, then if not, then you really need to think about what's your intention of saying that behind somebody's back. Maybe, I don't know. But sorry, Jensen, I cut you off.
As in, like, I guess with your new question, I need to think about it first. But like, I do generally agree. Like that person who's not in the room, like, that's why I guess like still kind of pushing for like if you can make it as neutral as possible. That way, it doesn't really hurt the person you're talking about when that gossip is like kind of passed on. Yeah. Forgot my train of thought.
Right. I guess it's like instead of like neutral, I guess be as compassionate as possible. Maybe you like be honest with yourself, because that's how you feel, right? That's the truth. Like you cannot deny your feelings, but you have to try your best to also think about from their perspective.
Right. Yeah,
right?
it's about that compassion, like really empathizing the person that you're talking about, knowing like the circumstances like he or she has to face. Like if I'm talking about like online lectures, like it's kind of funny that he or she did that, but like I also understand Zoom meetings, this new style of teaching is not suitable for everyone. Not everyone's gonna like get it on the first try, that kind of thing. So like I guess it's not in a sense of like saying, oh, no offense, or but then I can say whatever I want, but like kind of really establishing like you acknowledge that like the circumstance and the problems that this person is facing, but just occasionally like kind of this happened, and then move on with your life. It shouldn't like be something that it will be so negative that it ingrains it in your head that like when you meet this person you're unable to function or like have a dysfunctional relationship.
I was just thinking, this is great. So we kind of established that how we feel about it, how when we hear gossip, how we should control ourselves, not thinking about, how have any negative thoughts or whatever of the other person, or try not to have any judgment on the other person. I agree with that. Okay. But what happened was what if it's the third person? What if it's the person that you're talking to that have that, how you can, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't really control what other people think. So by you saying it, you can't really control whether other people have judgment or whatever. You can't. So would the better approach is just don't talk about it then? I guess that's my question. Let us say if you ask yourself, is it necessary? Would it drive a wedge? And then like, do I really have to tell them?
I guess for me, like, I'm really looking at the is it necessary question, and it's kind of difficult for us because like we engage with so many different people. We as humans are just such social creatures, and like it's kind of controversial to say, but like gossip is inherently like good or bad gossip, quote unquote. Like it's kind of inherent to us to discuss what other people are doing. And it's very difficult for us to completely avoid it in order to not know basically what other people are doing. Like when you're doing anything, you kind of need to work in a team. You kind of like successful things or great things don't happen, or like you can't really create them by yourself, or at least not to that magnitude. So I would say that like as someone who's talking about another person, and as like when you're taking the role of someone listening to someone else talking about this third person, it's really how like you choose to take in that information and have that realization, have that compassion, have that empathy to evaluate and then kind of drive the conversation in a more positive / at least neutral way, so that both parties leave that conversation knowing that like, okay, we just know that happened, and nothing really negative like will come off that conversation, I suppose. I guess like in the form of like when Melody and Lewis were talking about them ranting about their mom, which is really funny to me. Like, cause like you guys literally talk about your mom almost in every episode.
Bro, the issue is so real, girl.
But yeah, so like every,
you should
but, like,
you
if
should
you
like
reflect
sit into our
and if you look
therapy
back
sessions.
in every conversation, it's not about. So at least like for us, when we listen to them talking about their parents, they like say in a very factual manner. They try to emphasize like, okay, this happened and they made me feel this. But they didn't bombard us with like, oh my gosh, she's a terrible person, blah, 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 that kind of approach. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Just try.
You guys want to like add on to anything on that?
I don't know. I guess the thing is, right? So let's say in what Lyris said, right? So if she's ranting to me because she really needs somebody to, talk about, talk to, and get different perspectives and whatnot, right? But at the same time, if we are here to talk to you guys about it, like, what are we trying to achieve? I guess that's the thing, right? So maybe in one of the episodes we said it as an example to illustrate a point. So it's not to drive wedge, then maybe that's okay. But if let's say sometimes I really have a problem with my mom. And my mom too. Wait, which led me to another question. Is it okay if I talk about somebody to you whom you don't know, then I technically can't drive a wedge between you two because you don't know.
But you guys could meet. But that's the thing, right? If we our intention when we bring up our mother is to like illustrate a point, but you guys already have some sort of judgment or some like a very vague image of our mother based on the information that we provided, like the example that we have, then that's sort of driving a wedge.
It's true, because when you guys meet my mom again, or when you see her, or when you talk to her, you might remember one of the things that we talked about, and that allowed you to form an impression of her, which is driving a wedge.
Sort of. Could be.
Okay, maybe it's not necessary, but would it drive a wedge between two party? And also, I think you guys make a good point, is whether you would say it in front of that person. Right? Maybe. Because I feel like a lot of time you just kind of restating what happened. You will say that in front of your mom again because it's just what happened, right? And you also said how you felt. You never said like, oh, you're a piece of garbage. No, none of that, right? You just say, this is what happened, or how I perceive to happen, and this is how I feel. And I think that's fine. You will say that again, and you can say it again in front of your mother, like as in this case. So I think if we always using those two criteria to how we talk about whatever we talk about in our conversation, and I think that'll be okay then, as long as I don't know. Those two would be good qualifiers, perhaps.
Yeah, and I would just like to say, adding on, actually the mom, like this mom example is actually a pretty good like thing. Like I met your mom, I think, the week before I left, like to come over to start uni.
Oh, you guys play
Yeah, we play
mahjong, right?
mahjong. Another podcast episode that you guys can listen to, which is, but yeah, like,
Which is crazy. Can you guys like comprehend this? Like Jansen, who is my age, went to my home without meeting us and just go straight to play mahjong with my mother.
Mahjong is
this
amazingly
really
Singapore.
a weird
like,
friendship,
like,
you know?
all the people of my age in Singapore, like we do this. Okay, I don't know whether we go to like parents, but like I love mahjong. I don't really have like like you guys don't play. This is the problem. If you guys play, then sure. But okay. But going back to it, like when I met her, it didn't really like I wouldn't say okay to me. Like it didn't really drive what you guys have said didn't really drive like any sort of quote unquote wedge because like I guess I know more information now, but like I feel that with that information it doesn't really affect the way I see her like just like person to person. And I think it's very important like when you're unloading information to someone and that like you should be confident enough. Like, I think what Kelvin mentioned earlier, you should be confident enough that that person won't take it in like such a like won't drive the points all the way to like the North Pole, that kind of thing, that kind of idea. Yeah, I hope this helps like someone.
I guess this
It's just
but I guess this.
Oh no! All in all, I think is good. I think the bottom line is just need to be more conscious about what you say, and then maybe we always every time when you speak, you just think about those two things. Am I gonna drive a wedge? Can I trust this person? And I was like, and things that I'm about to say, would I repeat it in front of the person again? I think that will be if we always think about those two things before we speak, then it will be okay, I guess.
It'll be better.
Yeah.
It'll be definitely better.
So if back to what I guess I am a gossip bitch, Bent, because I don't think I will say that in front of that person again. Like I may not drive a wedge between Harry and that person, but I'm probably not gonna be like, yeah, the manager's probably gonna talk about you, dude. No, I'm probably not gonna say that. So. Damn, I gotta go and think about life again.
No, but I do. I'm really happy with this conversation because it did make me think, because I do now realize how many unnecessary space filler things I talk about every day with no point. Like I legit do not need to be. So maybe silence is golden, guys. Maybe
See, that's what I've been saying the whole time is don't talk to people unless you have to. Stop talking about the weather. Stop talking about what you ate. Like
what if that weather got offended and you're bitching about it?
And I would say talk to more people to like kind of mentally relieve yourself, but just be aware that your words have consequences.
I agree.
Great. Awesome.
The more you know.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, guys.
All right,
and
this is a nice convo.
Yes, and thank you, listeners, for listening. Do subscribe to our Instagram and Facebook. We now have fancy quotes on our Instagram pages that you could get inspired every day. And that fills up time instead of gossiping about other people. So yes.
Oh, and on air, if this person's ever gonna listen to this, I would like to apologize. So and this is in record now. It's online. It's in cloud. It's on record forever. So I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So I just want to say.
I'm sorry. I know this is gossiping, but like I just want to know like the ending to the story. So is the manager talking about him? Or
No. I don't know. It happened. It just happened. So and now I'm not gonna find out. I'm not gonna go ask.
Is it necessary to know?
But the thing is, if the manager is talking about that person or it is not, then like it's not gossiping because it's no longer speculation. So it's just a fact, then it's no longer gossiping.
But you're still possibly driving a wedge.
I don't know this person. I know them as
This is why I shouldn't even tell you. No, I was kidding.
Even if you know, you shouldn't be answering this question. Also, another side, small gossip. I apologize, but my dog is snoring like a crazy person. I don't know if you guys heard it. But
you're driving a wedge between me and popcorn right now. Wow, he's not as perfect as I thought he is. He snores. Oh my god.
Okay, and I think that's a great place to end the conversation.
Yes.
So thank you guys for listening once again.
Bye.